Yeah, top of the show today. Football is where we start for the main portion of the SportsMax zone. Jamaica came from a goal down to draw 1-1 with Costa Rica in round 3 of their CONCACAF World Cup Qualifier in San Jose on Wednesday night. Shamar Nicholson continued his form in front of goal with the equaliser minutes after the second half interval. This was after Jimmy Marin gave Costa Rica the lead after just 3 minutes of the game. Other results on the night saw the USA registering their first win of the octagonal stage with a 4-1 spanking of Honduras coming from behind in San Pedro Sula. Mexico, away from home, were held 1-1 by Panama, and Canada, like their North American neighbors, USA, registered their first win of the octagonal stage with an easy 3-0 score over El Salvador. So following 3 rounds of action in this stage of the qualifying for Qatar, this is how the standings shape up. Mexico top with 7 points, 2 ahead of the USA, Canada and Panama. All have 5 points, with the USA and Canada having similar goal differences, so they're pretty much joint second. And Panama are in 4th spot. Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador fill 5th, 6th and 7th spots, and Jamaica still bottom of the table. Former Trinidad and Tobago international Brent Sancho joins us now to discuss the qualification scenario after the completion of round 3. Brent, welcome to the SportsMax zone. The last time we spoke about a Jamaica performance, it read pretty dismal for the Reggae Boys, but a lot of improvement in last night's fixture, even though they didn't get a win.
Yeah, certainly a lot of improvement. It's a lot easier being hunted than being the hunter. And that means, of course, playing at home, where you expected to get 3 points like Jamaica was against Panama, and as opposed to playing away from Costa Rica, where a point would look like a solid performance. And yes, even outside of the context of results, performance-wise, it was a lot more better, a lot more organized, a better shape. And of course, they did have a couple of goal-scoring threats, and some may even argue that Jamaica could have stolen all 3 points out of Costa Rica. So a good overall performance. I think Theodore Whitmore needed that from his charges after the debacle in the office against Panama. And it puts them on the board with 1 point. Still a lot of football to be played.
Yeah, you know what? There was an observation as well, Brent, that from even before the opening whistle, when the teams were lining up and the national anthems were being played, there seemed to have been a little bit more focus, a little bit more determination, and a little more intensity from this starting 11 that Whitmore had compared to the Panama game on Sunday.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of talk coming out of the game against Panama that the expectations from that team that played in Kingston was that they would dominate possession, they would have played all over Panama, and they would have a better brand of football. But let's remind ourselves that in the Caribbean, the very few teams in the Caribbean, and when in this stage of the competition, dominates the possession, whether home or away. That is a fact. That's how Caribbean teams approach games. We're a bit more direct, we're athletic, big, strong, skillful individually. That's the type of football that you expect from a Caribbean nation in World Cup qualifying. And that game against Costa Rica suited the Jamaicans perfectly. The game against Panama, Lance, was something out of their flesh, out of their skin, something that we're not used to Caribbean style-wise. And they tried to play a particular way that did not suit the way Caribbean teams normally approach this side of the competition. That being said, I think moving forward for the Reggae Boys is now, how do you blend everything? You've seen now with what had happened against Panama, of course, what has happened against Costa Rica, 2 different teams. How do you now integrate some of the good players, the talented players that you're going to be bringing back for the next phase of the competition into the type of performance that you had against Costa Rica? And I think that's the question that Theodore Whitmore is going to have to answer.
Definitely, Brent. And of course, after the match, Tyreek McGee admitting that in the first half, he made some simple mistakes. He should have released the ball, a bit quicker, and, saying that he felt as if he rectified those mistakes in the second half. What did you make of his performance?
I was actually surprised that he didn't play in the game, Mexico game, from the start. I thought I rate him as a player. I think he's a very talented player. But again, as I said before, for us, for the Caribbean teams, most coaches going into World Cup qualifiers would appreciate the fact that from a possession perspective, we won't possess the ball as much as the opposition, whether it be home or away, as I said. So players of that ilk, like McGee, sometimes would be left in the shadows. And I don't have to go back too far in memory, everybody remembers, of course, Russell Latipi in the 2016. He didn't get much playing time because obviously the defensive side of things wasn't his strong point. So he was not needed because we understood in 2006 World Cup that we wouldn't be having the lion's share possession. So similar for someone like McGee. So those types of players, those luxury players, as we like to call them, Mariah, will always have a challenge when it comes to starting getting significant playing time when it comes to these types of World Cup qualification processes.
You know, after the poor performance earlier, a lot of people were calling for Theodore Tapper Whitmore's dismissal. They were saying that, you know, they were putting a lot of pressure on him. We did see some mistakes in the second half where we got a lot of opportunities and we threw it away. Of course, that was not the coach's doing. He can only tell you what to do. He can't, you know, capitalize and, of course, finish the chances for you. Does this performance against Costa Rica ease the pressure of Whitmore?
I think once you're in a coaching position, you're always going to be under pressure. But what is remarkable about this, Mariah, when he was in a Gold Cup final, I didn't hear anyone calling for his head. When he made a Gold Cup semi-final, no one was calling for his head. And when they had solid performances at the international level, no one called for his head. Look, at the end of the day, coaches are going to have a bad day in the office. That's a fact. That's how football is. But I think it was a bit premature to call for his head. I do think if he can get a little bit more assistance, yeah, of course, I think that would help. But I think him being at the helm, there certainly seems to be a certain level of affection between player and coach. You can see that the players do want to play for him. I think the game against Panama was just a blip on the radar. And I think he should be able to continue. As I said, any sort of alterations, if there were to be any, would be in a complementary role, an assistant role, help someone to help, not someone to take over from his position.
Damien Lowe, after the performance, saw it as a turning point. Do you see it the same way?
I think it's a turning point as it relates to the feeling in the camp. And I think that's probably how they felt in the camp after the embarrassing 3-0 loss. But look, there's a lot of football still to be played, and a lot of things can change between now and the end of the campaign. As I said, I really, truly believe that this campaign is going to go all the way down to the wire, meaning the last kick of the ball. Because if you look at the results, I really do not think Panama is going to be able to continue with that high-octane, high press that they've been doing so far in the 3 games. I think depth of squad is going to play a significant role in these qualifiers. And I think form of players. You're talking about throughout a year. So a player can dip, can rise in form. And situations can happen like that. So I do think there's a lot still to play for. There's a lot of twists and turns in this competition to come. But my goodness, it has been some really exciting football games so far at the CONCACAF, and it's been a tremendous advert for CONCACAF football.
Yeah, when Trinidad and Tobago qualified for the 2006 World Cup, Brent, with you at Central Defence, there were just 6 teams in the final round of CONCACAF. It was an hexagonal as opposed to octagonal at the moment. But at the moment, after 3 rounds of football, the Jamaicans have 1 point, which is exactly where TNT were after your 3 matches. You had just 1 point from the first 3 matches. There was a coaching change early in the campaign as well that beefed up TNT's hopes of getting to the World Cup, which they did eventually. Do you see the more lengthy qualification process here that the Jamaicans will go through, making it easier for them to recover from the bad start than maybe TNT had to do in the 06 campaign?
Yeah, and I will also add, Lance, the fact that there's a 3rd game as well. When we played in 2006 World Cup qualifiers, there was only 2 games during every window. Now you're talking about a 3rd game. And that's what I'm saying. I think the depth in squad is where the teams like Mexico, Canada, and USA are going to prevail. They have some serious depth in their squad. And I think Jamaica has that as well. And despite the fact, of course, that the Chargers that played in the game on Sunday against Panama was not up to scratch, I think in due course they will get up to speed because you're talking about some talented players. So I think Jamaica's depth is certainly going to be a key factor in assisting them climbing out of the cellar of the group. When you look at the likes of Costa Rica, Panama, Honduras, El Salvador as well, they don't have that kind of depth. They don't have that kind of situations. Costa Rica look dead legs-wise because, again, as I've said before, it's an aging squad and you're asking that aged player to play 3 games in a window, which is a lot of football and a lot of demand. So I do feel that Jamaica's depth is going to play a key factor. And I think that the way moving forward for them is to understand that and be able to take heed from it and use it as the platform for them to qualify.
Yeah, well, we've seen what the other teams that the Jamaicans will have to play have put on the table so far. The USAs, the Canadas of this world, and Honduras as well. So there are going to be upcoming fixtures for the Jamaicans in the next window in October. Your thoughts on what the Jamaicans will have to do against them, having seen, the quality they have displayed, although you didn't think that highly of El Salvador just now?
No, I certainly don't think, especially away from home. I think El Salvador at home is a completely different proposition. They bring in every single tactic that you would expect off the field, from trumpets blowing outside your hotel room to bumpy bus rides to the football field. That's what we experience in Trinidad, and that's what I expect from them. So playing them in El Salvador is always going to be a tricky task. I think Honduras, again, similar to Panama, high pressing game. They put a lot of energy into their football. And I just feel that type of push is going to only get you so far, because the fatigue is going to play a factor. The Canadians, however, I think certainly is a dark horse in this tournament. I've been extremely impressed with what I've seen for them. As I said, I talked about depth. I'm impressed with their depth. I'm impressed with their attacking ability, what they bring to the table. I think even in the USA game, Lance, I thought they should have gotten a little bit more out of it other than just a draw. And it's a team that I think Jamaica would have to be extremely wary of. And a draw against the Canadian, I think, is a good result. I think against El Salvador in particular, I think 3 points is a must. And they have to find a way to get a positive result, a win against Honduras, and I think Jamaica is back in the thick of things.
Yeah, all right, Brent, we'll talk again. A lot of football left to be played, and the Reggae Boys trying to rebound from the bad start. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, you know what, Maria, one of the things I looked at when I saw the game last night, I couldn't help but feel that Theodore Whitmore's comfort coaching the group that he was coaching last night may have been at a higher level than the group that he was in charge of on Sunday, because the players he was presiding over on Sunday were players he knew very little of.
Yeah.
As players from a coach-player relationship. I got the feeling that he was a lot more comfortable with the squad last night and appeared to have gotten a lot more out of this bunch than the bunch that played on Sunday.
You're so right. And you know what supports that point, Lance? It's at halftime when I'm guessing he said something to them that, of course, turned the entire performance around. And obviously, that sort of connection that he would have with the players would, give them that inner fight. I know Andrew Blake described the performance as a gutsy performance, Lance. Mm-hmm. And I got that in the second half. Yeah. I got the sense that whatever he would have said to them, they all know that their coach has been under some pressure. And the last thing you would want to do is let your coach down. Yeah. And I got that sense from them yesterday.
About a year ago, I remember Andre Blake in an interview on local TV suggesting, he hinted at it. I wouldn't suggest that he made it, very, very clear. But he hinted at the fact that he was a little unsettled about so many new players coming into the setup at such a late stage, when he feels it's best to have a group that you're working with day in, day out to get yourself prepared for World Cup qualifiers. And I just think he may not want to say it at this point to destabilize the chemistry in the setup and the push towards advancing to the World Cup. But I think I gather from listening to him speak that even after the match last night, that he was a lot more comfortable with a team that played last night than the team that played on Sunday. As I say, he didn't say it, but if you listen to him carefully, and I went back to things he had said prior, that he just seems so pleased with what happened last night, not only on the performance of the team, but I could sense that he was talking about how much the players gave.
That's true.
How much they committed themselves to the process. And I know it might be unfair to criticize the England-based players in the Panama game about the commitment and the diligence they showed, but they were in unfamiliar situations for them. Yeah. So it may have been tough for them, but I just think that there was a lot more desire and fight
And
and energy from the team last night.
That's key, Lance, because I got that same sense. And, you know, as much as I was asking about Theodore Tapper Whitmore and questioning our guest on the last show, I also understand the position that he was put in because he was given these players. He didn't have a choice. His hands were literally tied and he got them like on the Friday. They were supposed to play the next day, one training session. So we can understand also the predicament that he was faced with. Yeah,
so the Reggae Boys getting their first point from the CONCACAF World Cup Qualifiers in a 1-1 draw against Costa Rica in San Jose on Wednesday night. We go to break. Lots of big horse racing from England coming up on the weekend. The Longines Irish Champions Weekend. You'll see that live on SportsMax Saturday morning, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time. And there's action Sunday as well. All that on SportsMax 2.